The most famous space photo of the last decade is showing you several things at once, and almost no one will tell you which is which. By the end of the next 10 minutes, you'll be able to look at this image and name what each color is, what's hiding behind the dust, why the pillars are being slowly destroyed, and one ongoing argument that has nothing to do with what people argue about online. So let's open the image. What you're looking at sits inside a place called the Evil Nebula, catalog number M16. About 6,500 light-years away in the constellation Serpens. The pillars themselves are 5 light-years tall. For scale, the entire solar system out to Neptune is about 8 light-hours across. Stack the solar system end-to-end about 5,500 times. That is one pillar. But the most important thing in the image isn't actually the pillars. It's a star cluster called NGC 6611, just outside the frame. Those young, massive stars are the engine for everything we're about to walk through. The pillars exist because of them. The pillars are also being eaten by them. To read the JWST image, you have to know what came before. In 1995, the Hubble Space Telescope took the original pillars of creation photo using 3 narrow-band filters: sulfur, hydrogen alpha, and oxygen. The team mapped each filter to red, green, and blue. The image became iconic partly because that color was readable. Red for sulfur, green for hydrogen, blue for oxygen. The JWST version is doing something completely different. JWST sees infrared, different wavelengths than Hubble. So the question isn't which gas glows in which color, it's which temperature emits at which wavelength. Let's walk through 3 of the NIRCam filters that built this image. The first is the 0.9 micron filter called F090W. In the final composite, it's pushed to blue. What it actually shows is the hot ionized surface of the pillars, the gas being scoured by ultraviolet light from that nearby cluster. So when you see those bright blue and white edges, you're not looking at where the pillars are. You're looking at where the pillars are being destroyed. The second filter is narrowband. It's called F187N, and it's tuned specifically to a hydrogen emission line called Passion Alpha. It gets mapped to that distinctive cyan and teal color. What it's tracing is the ionization front, the literal boundary where the cluster's ultraviolet light is right now, peeling hydrogen apart. And the most surprising part of this image isn't even visible in those 2 filters. The third is the 4.4 micron filter, F444W, pushed to red. Longer wavelengths come from cooler sources, which is why deeper, cooler dust shows up redder. But this filter shows something else. The bright red and orange points you can see at the pillar tips are not stars in a visible sense. They're protostars, newborn stars still swaddled in dust cocoons that they themselves are heating. Hubble could not see these. JWST can. Now look closely at the tips. You'll see small dark blobs the size of our entire solar system. These were named in 1996 by the same Hubble team. They're called evaporating gaseous globules. Each EGG is a knot of gas dense enough to resist the ultraviolet erosion long enough for gravity to pull it inward and form a star. That's what JWST is showing you. Not a historical scene, not a fossilized monument. An active stellar nursery, present tense, right now. Why do the pillars exist at all? Because of a process called photoevaporation. When the cluster's massive stars switched on a few million years ago, their ultraviolet light started ablating the surrounding gas. Lower density gas gets blown away first. Higher density columns linger because they shield the gas behind them. So the pillars are essentially shadows. They are the regions that haven't been destroyed yet. Notice that all the pillars in the image point in the same direction. They're aimed at the cluster. They have to be. They're sculpted by it. And that brings us to the part of this image that's still genuinely contested. In 2007, a group led by Wes Maquette analyzed Spitzer Space Telescope data at 24 microns and found a region of warm dust nearby. Their interpretation: a recent supernova exploded somewhere in the cluster and the shock wave is on its way to flatten the pillars. They estimated arrival in about 1,000 years. The headlines that came out of that paper, "The pillars are already gone, we just don't know it yet," became one of the most repeated facts about this image online. But that's not where the science actually landed. A 2011 follow-up by Flagey and colleagues argued the warm dust is local heating from existing massive stars, not a passing shock. Subsequent observations have not turned up the supernova remnant the original paper required. The current consensus among the people who study this object, the supernova interpretation, is not well supported. The pillars are still there, which means that when you look at this image, you are looking at something that exists right now, not a ghost, not a fossil, a 6,500-year-old photon, yes. but a real, present tense object. There's one more piece to make this image fully readable. Compare the JWST shot to the Hubble shot side by side and you'll notice JWST shows things Hubble couldn't. Protostars buried inside the pillars, dust glowing where Hubble saw only black. The reason isn't a sharper telescope, it's wavelength. Interstellar dust grains average about 0.1 microns. Visible light has wavelengths around 0.5 microns. JWST longest filter is 4.4 microns, 9 times larger than the grains. So infrared photons go through. JWST is, at these wavelengths, looking at a partially transparent cloud. So now, when you look at the image, the hot blue and white surfaces, that's ionized gas being scoured. The teal threads weaving across the pillars, those are passion alpha ionization fronts. The deep red glow inside, that's the warmer dust column itself. The bright red and orange points at the pillar tips, those are protostars heating their own cocoons. And the darker spaces between the pillars, those are simply patches of sky empty in these filters. That's the entire image, decoded. The Eagle Nebula contains another feature 3 times the height of the pillars of creation. Almost no one has heard of it. Decoded next week.